they're still playing games. Believe it or not, they still have some games to be played. The college football playoff is set for New Year's Eve. Michigan is going to play TCU. If you're a Michigan fan, this is not new territory for you. Last year, actually, you won the Big Ten. Last year, you beat Ohio State. Last year, you were in the college football playoff. Well, you show up in the college football playoff, you lose 34-11 to Georgia, who was the eventual national champion, to be fair. But you lost, and it, quite frankly, wasn't really that close. I'm not saying anything novel here. Michigan fans understand that, but there is much more cause for confidence this season than I think there was last season, which I think we need to break down just a little bit. Last year, I think the defense was really star-dependent. Aiden Hutchinson is doing his thing in the NFL. Like that, let's just be real here. Aiden Hutchinson is a baller, was a baller last year, was up for the Heisman Trophy, all that. David Ojabo, also an NFL caliber player. They really leaned on those guys to generate a lot of the juice defensively. And I think with this year's team, it is, like I said, a no-star kind of defense, meaning they're not depending on different stars each Saturday. And the best way I could explain that and why that's important, think about the game Jenga. Whenever you pull one of those little boards out, there's the possibility the whole thing topples over. And that was Michigan's defense last year. You pull the Aiden Hutchinson board out, pull the David Ojabo board out, oh boy, that thing's wobbly. That thing might fall over. The thing could shake this way and that way, and then eventually it did against Georgia. I think this year's team doesn't have those 2 to 3 boards that you really depend on. It's unit dependent. For sure. I mean, it's all 11, do your job. Like, that's a pretty cliche thing to say, but you've gotten better results this season. 2021 against the pass allowed 204 yards a game. This year, allowing 191. Last year against the rush, 126 yards a game given up. Still really solid. I believe it was top 25 in the country. This year, you're number 2 or number 1 in the country, giving up 85 yards a game. And so it's not bad to have stars on your defense. Do not hear me incorrectly. But when you don't have to depend so heavily on 1 to 2 players, as it feels like Michigan did at times a season ago, I think that bodes well. I think having more stable blocks and not 2 to 3 you have to depend on when it comes to that Jenga game for Michigan, that would give me a lot of confidence going forward to say, you know what? This year's not last year. Yeah, we had a lot of the same accomplishments, but this year just feels different than last year, and the defense is a big reason why I'd be more confident if I'm a Michigan fan. If you have not yet subscribed, we'd love to have you at the party. A ton of the Michigan faithful have joined us in the last couple of weeks, over 1,000 of you, so thank you for that. If you haven't yet subscribed, jump on in. The water's fine. No time like the present. Also, follow me on the socials, at JD Piquel on Twitter and on Instagram. Looking at the offensive side of things, the best way I could describe why I'd be more confident if I'm a Michigan fan in this offensive attack, last year you had a really solid vehicle. I would equate it to like a Hummer. Like, you were just rolling over people. The run game was special. Joe Moore award-winning offensive line, a Joe Moore award finalist offensive line this year, but that was really just who you were. Hand the ball to Corum, hand the ball to Haskins, like, let those dudes eat. Handing the ball to Edwards at times a season ago. Let those dudes be special and let them cook. However, if that Hummer ever got stuck in some really deep mud, you have great tires on that thing. It usually can just kind of roll over everything. But if you got stuck in the mud, it was really difficult to get it out, right? If you ran into someone that could stop the run, it became a little bit tricky. And that was Michigan last year. In this game against Georgia in the college football playoff, they really, for the most part, outside of what that stat sheet says, doesn't tell the whole story, they kind of took away your bread and butter, right? Took away the run game. And off of that, there was no real legitimate answer. And that's why you got the final score you did in 34-11. This year, we saw Ohio State attempt to do what Georgia did in that college football playoff game. They sell out to stop the run, right? In Columbus, we were there. Jim Knowles' defense is just absolutely shutting off the water in that first half. And then guess what? You made a change at quarterback. Going into this year, you made it for a reason. And J.J. McCarthy has made good on every single expectation, or every single call to action, rather, that you would have had for the youngster at this point in time. Now, that car floats. You get stuck in the mud, you say, that's cool, we can win that way too. We can get to where we want to get to. Get stuck in the mud, That's fine. We embrace it. We just float on through it. No worries. That's kind of what I think this pass game is for them. Is J.J. McCarthy is able now to not just be a guy who can make plays off play action. Like, that was always the hope. You can be able to make the defense pay when the safeties creep up, when the linebackers creep up, as they did at times against Ohio State. When you don't have success in the run game at all and they know you're going to throw it, J.J. McCarthy can hurt you then too. We saw that against Ohio State a couple of times. You had like 1 yard rushing at one point in the first half. J.J. McCarthy's just standing back there, dealing. Are they where they want to be yet in the pass game? I think they still have room for improvement, room for growth. And for them to have room for growth and still in the college football playoff, to be having this conversation in December, really good news for the Michigan faithful. And so the different ways they can beat you on offense now is really exciting. And again, why I have confidence to where if TCU is somehow able to sell out and stop the run, or maybe their defensive line just has the day of all days in the college football playoff and they take away Edwards, I'm just saying, you then can just say, all right, J.J. McCarthy, you know what time it is, brother. Let's go get after it. So the pass game and the transformation of that this season is why you feel better about your chances in this college football playoff game. Lastly, Will Johnson. I've said it many times. I think he is potentially the most impactful player on Michigan's roster in this college football playoff run, especially in this game. He will be tasked with, I don't know if it'll be the entirety of the game, but at multiple times throughout the game, a lot of the game, he will be tasked with covering TCU's Quentin Johnston. Now, Quentin Johnston is a matchup problem. Will Johnson, for this Michigan defense, he's only a freshman, he is your matchup problem solvent. He's the solution. When you get that big body receiver like Quentin Johnston out on the edge, I'm not even saying Will Johnson's going to lock him up completely. I'm not even saying he holds him to under 70 yards receiving. But I am saying this, he's going to win a fair amount of his battles. Even if it's 50-50, he's going to give you a chance to have the other guys on your defense impact the game. It's not going to be just Quentin Johnston take over. That's really important for Michigan. That's an impressive spot to be at if you're a freshman. 6'3", playing his best ball right now. Had 2 interceptions in the Big Ten title game. With his size and his ball skills, that's going to make up for a lot of the one-on-one matchups you end up drawing if you're Michigan in this college football playoff. It starts with TCU, but I don't think you had that a season ago. I don't think Michigan had that kind of answer on the back end. And to have it now in Will Johnson, I feel a lot better about my matchup problems in the solvent with Will Johnson at corner. So here's the whole feel I have on this with Michigan. Last year, there was a whole lot of want to. In 2021, it was we want to beat Ohio State for the first time in a long time. We want to win the Big Ten title. We want to get to the college football playoff. They did all those things. A lot of want to. Now, here's the difference. You come into 2022 with this unit, with this program, expecting it. We expect to beat Ohio State. J.J. McCarthy said it in the offseason. We beat Ohio State. That's all we know right now. We want to keep that rolling. What'd they do? Go to Columbus. Game wasn't close at the end of the deal. I know Ohio State kept it close in the fourth quarter, but when Michigan pulled away, when Michigan went just full anaconda squeeze mode, like that was the end of the deal. Michigan expects it now. Got to the Big Ten title. There was no flinch. They win the Big Ten title. There's no over-celebration. There's no over-excitement. It's just, yeah, we expected to do this, but the job's not finished. Kind of been the phrase for them. Job is not finished. Tom Brady in his first Super Bowl gets to that game, and he finished the game, and in an interview later, he just said, I felt like there was so much just extra stuff around me. There was so much stuff that had nothing to do with the game that was, if not a distraction, at least was on my mind. And for Michigan, I wonder if that'll be the same kind of result for them this coming college football playoff run. Last year, it was the bright lights. It was the first time they had been to the playoff. It was a lot of excitement, and it was all warranted, 100% warranted. But now, having been there once before as a program, some of those guys on that roster that weren't starters last year but were on the team, I think it'll be a little bit more of a business-like approach. And the expectation as opposed to the want to, I think is what could make Michigan more dangerous this time around. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.